Hello everybody, my name is Green and before we start, I'm just going to give you the rules. I can only use the first electric type of every round. If a Pokemon faints, they're dead, no items in battle, no overlevling, no listeners, and no dynamax till I fight Leon. Okay, so what I'm doing is an electric type running Pokemon Sword. Now, you see, the electric type is a very good type. Like, it's pretty all-rounding, only having one weakness. Now, of course, they have garbage defenses in general, but great speed and great special attack. But that leaves all physical attacking and electric types in the gutter. But before we start, I must mention I lost a bunch of data. So here's a condensed summary of the first two gyms. I caught a grubber named Google, a Yamper named eBay, and an Electrike. It doesn't matter what his name is because it died. I evolved my Google into a Charger Bug, then into a Vikavolt, and I take on Milo. I kill his Gossifleur with an X-Scissor, then I kill his Dynamax Eldegoss with an Hour X-Scissor. I catch a Pikachu named Amazon, I go to the Digging Duo, and I eventually get myself a Thunderstone, evolving into a Raichu. Then I beat Hop and Team Yell after very boring battles, go to the daycare to get myself a Toxel I named TikTok, then I move on to Holbury where I catch a Chinchou named Facebook. Then it's time for Nessa, and I use a nasty plot strategy. I set up 3 of them while her Goldeen goes for 2, very uneventful, and I just firm both of its own attacks before taking it out with 1 Thunderbolt. Out next is her Aracuda, which does do a bit of damage, outspeeding me using an Aqua Jet, but I do able to tank that as well, firing back with a Thunderbolt. Then another Thunderbolt takes out her Dynamax Dreadnought. I catch a Joltik, I name Reddit, a Eevee, I name DuckDuckGo, evolve eBay, and then have a nice dinner with Chairman Rose. Then I fight Bede and I sweep him with Google. So basically what I do is, unknowingly for the entire run, Google, being a Vikavolt, is super slow, but 1 X-Scissor can cleanly take out his Solosis, and I even outspeed. Bede starts yapping, but after my team gets some XP, out comes his Gothita next, but I take out with another X-Scissor. Then it's time for his Hatena, which equally gets taken out by another X-Scissor. Annoyingly though, his Ponyta that comes out next doesn't get taken out by an X-Scissor. For some reason, it's able to tank 1. So after a bunch of back and forth and really annoying subplots, I actually have to use 2 X-Scissors, and it actually outspeeds me, which isn't a surprise because again, Vikavolt is slow as dirt. But our X-Scissor takes it out, claiming victory over Bede. Next, I beat some Team Yell grunts and I evolve, and that allows my Facebook to evolve into a Lantern, being a good word for the next gym. But before that, let's backtrack into fighting Marnie in the Badu drop-in. She starts yapping at me again. I don't know if everyone likes to do that, but out comes her Krogunk that uses a Venoshock, which does big damage, but my Thunderbolt does even more, taking it out in 1 hit. Vikavolt is pretty busted to have this early in the game, but her Scraggy doesn't actually have any good moves against me, but I don't really have any good against it. So I set up DuckDuckGo, who has Double Kick, which is super effective, even though it's a fighting type, but it's dark type, because of its dark typing. It's with a Headbutt, which doesn't flip, which again, obviously doesn't flip, because again, I just switched out. It doesn't do too much damage, as my Double Kick doesn't do that much either. It sends it down to half, but its Headbutt does a lot getting the critical hit. But another Double Kick takes it out. Out next is Pico, and this thing was so hard, I didn't even know. I should have been able to take it down by myself, but I didn't. Needing a safe switch against it since DuckDuckGo was really hurting, switching to Google, thinking that I can easily take it out with X-Scissor. But this thing ends up doing tons of damage with its bite, surprising me because I'm supposed to resist dark due to my bug typing. So contemplating if I will lose Google this Morpeko, and before I even get 3 badges, I decide to switch back into my Joltik. Now, of course, little Reddit gets 1 shot by a bite, but actually he lives, surprisingly. But a quick attack by it before, I didn't know she had quick attack. A Leech Life would have totally done a ton, taken it out, and to give me tons of HP back. Now realizing I'm pretty screwed, I have to send out Google, who faces down his death. He uses his outsped and gets hit with a bite and lives, but I have to use a dig, which due to the soft side I'm holding there's a little bit more. But I learned it for that entire run that it doesn't matter. It doesn't do that. It does. It takes it down, take the yellow, but now I have to make a truly powerful sacrifice, sending out Amazon, thinking that she can easily take it out. Before anything but dangerous happens. Use a quick attack, knowing that it was going to since I was in low health. I use a bite on me, and like an idiot, I use a nasty plot. If I would have just used a move, it would have killed it immediately. So as I set up my nasty plots, I don't even realize it, and before too long, Amazon goes down to a bite. My first loss of the run isn't pretty. Out comes DuckDuckGo, which I forget easily outspeeds Morpeko, getting a double kick off, knocking it out, meaning that I lost Amazon for no reason, meaning my nasty plot setter is gone. I'm like an idiot, but as well. Licking my wounds and grieving the dead, I now am stuck with 3 not very strong Pokemon against the next gym leader, Kabu, which is notoriously difficult for runs. Out comes his Nighthawk as I DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is a special attacker, so it won't really matter if he burns me with Will-O-Wisp. And I had a Thunder Shock aiming for a paralysis, but I get crit instead, which is still pretty nice. A Will-O-Wisp does burn me though, which is again really annoying, but my attack not getting affected doesn't matter because I'm a special attacker. No Thunder Shock takes it down to the yellow, but an Ember doesn't do that much to me actually, and as it burns me, I click Bite like an idiot, but then I switched to Thunder Shock, luckily taking it down to the red. I think another one will take it out, but it uses a Fire Spin, which is really annoying. Then it uses a quick attack, as my Thunder Shock is eventually able to take it out. Out next is a Pokemon that really puts me into the danger zone. His Arcanine. So of course I'm looking for any reason to have a really good switch into anything he does, because at this point Facebook was rocking up with Waterfall, a physical move, which is first of all stupid. I could have got like any other water move, Hydro Pump, Brine, from the TMs or TRs in the wild area, but I didn't because I thought Waterfall was the best I could do. He uses an agility on the first turn, which is again really lucky that he didn't burn me, but not good at all. I go for a Thunder Wave as it goes for a Will-O-Wisp. It burns me, and of course that means it halves my Waterfall, but I Thunder Wave it, slowing it down and making it so that it might not move sometimes, which is actually really good. Knowing that I can take out Arcanine, but probably not take out Center Scorch, I go for my Waterfall as it hits me with Bite. It does a decent chunk, but as it Bite doesn't do that much to me. Use another Bite, as my Waterfall ends up taking it down to the red, but my burn making me not fully take it out. I contemplate switching to Google, but I realize how stupid that is because Google will die. So I switch into eBay. eBay faces down the dog against dog battle, and I obviously win by tanking a Bite. I was going to go for a Will-O-Wisp, so I end up going for a Spark. And I actually outspeed, even though due to its agility, but I guess the paralysis must have helped with the speed getting cut. But now you're going to see eBay is here because since I can't Dynamax, the thing that happens is max moves break through protect through and through. But what happens is their damage is severely decreased. I've seen it happen. Pokemon will be at like red health and still just live on a slither of health due to the fact that of protect. Anyways, he Gigantamaxes his Center Scorch, and eBay protects. As he does, it hits him with a G-Max Centinferno, doing tons of damage. Is what it was if it did, but it didn't. Luckily, I tank it like a champion, but Protect gets less and less accurate as it puts me in a Fire Spin. I heal up with my Citrus Berry that I gave him, meaning he can totally live another one. But I need a good switch, but I can't. When I was going to switch out into DuckDuckGo, sacrificing him, but I can't. Realizing now that I'm stuck in a rock and a hard place, I use another Protect that he actually gets off. But another G-Max Centinferno comes through, hits him, and he lives. But if I can somehow land a third Protect, which is super unlikely, I'm more likely to find a shiny than I find it. And if I spin trapping me in, I go for Spark, paralyzing it, which is stellar, meaning it's now slower, but another G-Max Centinferno takes out my doggo from half health, meaning the goodest boy that was eBay gets taken down. Or should I say goodest girl since she's female. Knowing that I now have to make a very diligent choice, I end up switching out to TikTok to tank the next dynamax turn, and switching to Google, getting a safe hit. I ended up starting using Dig for some reason, thinking that since it's not technically weak to ground, well, because of its bug type, but not resistant because of its bug typing. So anyways, it goes for smoke, soon knows my accuracy, but I go stop being stupid, use a thunderbolt, immediately take it out, and get my 3rd gem badge, with only 1 casualty of a team member that you may have not known because I also saw a bunch of footage, but eBay was one of my best Pokemon, and only she was recently evolved. For a quick power upgrade, I evolved TikTok into a low-key Toxtricity, my favorite out of them two. Anyways, now he's actually usable, I'm finally able to go to the back of the Isle of Armor to catch a Magnemite. This is going to be good, as skills are very good. Also, its sturdy ability could come in great handy, if only it had it. I name it Opera GX, as I end up moving to the next route, catching a Helioptile that I named Snapchat, that I evolve into a Heliolisk with one of the many Sunstones after the countless failed attempts that the Dig Doer has done. And then I go to Terralist to go revive some of my fossils, getting myself an Arctozolt, naming him Grinder. What? He's loud, he's proud, and he's never going to be sorry about it. Anyways, as I move on, I'm able to finally start to challenge B, or I would have because I forgot I have to fight Hop. So his Cramorant is easily dispatched by a single Thunderbolt after missing a Fury attack. Then next up is his reboot. So as it comes out, I switch into Facebook, which, trust me, this will be the last time his starter will be easy to take down. As I switch Google for Facebook, I hit it with a Brine, which I taught it because I realized how stupid it was to have a physical attacking move for a special attacker. It's worth a round, but my Brine does a way more than his round could ever. He outspeeds me though, because again, it's a fish against an athletic rabbit. But my next Brine ends up taking it down to half, which, regardless if it mattered or not, but Brine gets a power boost once a Pokemon is at half health, which obviously doesn't matter because I would kill it regardless due to type advantages. Use another round on me, taking me down to not even half, even if it got a critical hit. Then another Brine takes it out. Out next is Hopsilly Cobra, which obviously, due to the fact it's a ground type, is easily dispatched by another Brine. Although this winning streak may seem a bit arduous, I like to think that it's just me and driving Hop down his deeper pit of depression, which might not be good. After a bit of free EXP, Hop's lost Pokemon is his Toxel, and I would know how useless Toxels are. So, after I watch the tiny baby have to face off against my powerhouse selection of powerful electric types, ignoring Opera GX exists, I switch into Google, who hits his tiny baby with a 4-time super effective soft sand boosted Dig, which, to no one's surprise, absolutely demolishes it. Or I would say that if it didn't hit me with a flail. I get my Dig off, and due to the fact that it's a 2-turn move, I have to wait a while as it tries to use Nuzzle, fails, and then gets taken out by my Dig, beating Hop without any trouble whatsoever. Meaning I'm finally able to go all the way back to the Isle of Armor to catch myself an Emolga. This will be super important. It's like so goddamn important. Like the fact, like, there's not an attempt counter, but this challenge has been postponed for so long because I lost to beat 5 times. So I just kept giving up and then putting it on the back burner. Anyways, out comes Hitmontop, and I send out Instagram, and this little guy is the best thing that I'm so glad I've never lost. Foreshadowing, isn't it? So first I use a Spark against it, fishing to see if it would use a counter, which it does, which would have killed me at that time. So I use my Citrus Berry to heal up, and then this actually puts it exactly in acrobatics range. But I end up trying to see if it's going to do anything else. So I use a protect, being a little bit scared, and it actually tries to use counter again, knowing that I'm a flying type. So I ended up going for the risk, using an acrobatics, and I take it out with a critical hit help. Does that crit matter? I don't care. I'm so glad I still got it. Next, after I reach the level cap, out comes a Pangoro. Now you see, Pangoro is 4 times weak to Fairy, and Facebook has this Dazzling Gleam, which is why I taught it that. But you see, the problem is, this Pangoro has Work Up, and Work Up isn't a very powerful move. You usually stop using it after like the first gem. It's good for boosting your special attack and attack, but like you can get many more moves that are way more specific and do way better things for any Pokemon they're on. So it goes, but I need to go for a Work Up or Hit Me. It goes for a Work Up, which is dangerous but not bad. So as it uses Work Up and boosts its attack, special attack, I go for Thunder Wave, which now slows it down and also makes it less likely to hit me. Then she goes for what I believe to be, doesn't matter, because I just paralyze it fully. Out next is my Dazzling Gleam, and I outspeed, I hit it, and I kill it immediately. Luckily, all the safety precautions were advised, but I don't kill it, and it gets paralyzed the next turn, meaning luckily my Dazzling Gleam is able to come out and take it out. Trust me, that paralysis would mean so much if you would see what this thing's throat chop does once it gets a couple good workups off. Anyways, out next is her Surfetched, which isn't actually that scary at all, but does have knockoff, so I have to be careful. Luckily I'm able to pretty safely send out Instagram, since she already ate her Orange Berry. But I end up seeing if I can be a little bit sneaky and use a Thunder Wave, which I do get off. Now knowing I'm practically immovably safe against this, it does say move or revenge, which would have done a lot if I hit it with Dazzling Beam, because that would not have killed it. But you know what, I ended up hitting it regardless, seeing if I can cheap out a win. And I hit it with Dazzling Gleam, and obviously it doesn't take it out and leaves it on the yellow. It gets a critical hit though, as it uses a Sword Stance, which would be scary, but luckily I know I outspeed due to the paralysis, and even besides, I think my team could have handled it pretty well. I have a Bug Type in the back if things get sticky. I end up taking a risk switching into Instagram, because I'm trying to stall out her Dynamax turns with the exact same strategy. By the way, Acrobatics ends up getting boosted because I have no item. I take out her Surface pretty easily, and I switch into DuckDuckGo, because I realized I can take it out, but due to its max health, I would never be able to finish it off. DuckDuckGo is able to survive the first 2 Dynamax turns using a Limp Thunderfang before going down, meaning my next death of the playthrough has occurred. I switch into TikTok, which resists all of its moves, and I use an Acid Spray, lowering its special defense. It uses a limp, scary face, so I'm able to switch into Google, who gets hit by a revenge in a close combat, but a Thunderbolt, due to the Acid Spray's special defense strokes, takes out, meaning I get myself the fighting badge with pretty easy style. A couple EXP candies are able to evolve proper GX into a Magneton, then after a while I turn them into a Magnezone. Anyway, now it's time for Bead, and I just sweep him with a bunch of Bug Buzzes, since, you know, X-Scissor wasn't doing that much, so my special attack is way higher than my physical. So you literally can just watch me steamroll through his team. I did get hurt because, again, Vital Volt is so slow. But after a while of you just a couple Bug Buzzes and beat him. Now it's time for Opal, and since I have a Steel type and a Poison type, it wasn't that hard. One Flash Cannon takes out her Weezing. After I already get all her quizzes right, I end up switching into Snapchat for Bulldozers, so I can take out her Mawile. That is not weak to Poison, nor is it weak to Steel. Out next is her Togekiss, and since it's a flying type, I use a Volt switch into TikTok, which has a discharge that can take it out easily. Out next is her Alcremie, and it Dynamaxes, but like none of its moves are super effective against me, so I really do just use an. So really, I can just use an Acid Spray, which I just protect so it can survive some of those Dynamax turns. Acid Spray gets it down to the red as it shrinks back down, and I outspeed next time to take it out, getting me the Fairy Badge. Next up, I realized that our project has magnet pull, not sturdy, which is super bad because this next type of hop is so difficult. I'm able to KO with Trevenant with 2 bug buzzes, but what comes next is Cinderace. This thing sweeps off my team. I obviously send out Facebook because, obviously Facebook can take a bunch of Pyro Balls, right? He survives 2 and then dies to 3. I send out I send out Instagram, who uses acrobatics, then goes down. Then I send out Snapchat, and he dies. But then I have to send out friggin'. And then after it's also Pyro Balls, I end up sending out TikTok, which takes it out with a discharge. Then I comes Snorlax, because follows the same way. I comes Heat more, and I use the Fire Dash, which does a bunch of damage. I'm able to kill it just how slower, and it's faster than me. Out comes Bolton, that I'm able to take it down. I'm able to hit with a dig before it uses Raw, take me out. Then I switch into. I end up taking it out with a Tri Attack. Anyways, out next, I catch a Shinx in the Isle of Armor, evolving it straight into a Luxray. Then I catch a Morpeko that will be useful later, that I named Twitter/X. I catch a Togedemaru named Vinted as I start my fight with Gordy. I use Volt Switch on the Shuckle so I can get a bit of chip damage. I send out TikTok. I end up using an Acid Spray to lower its special attack, but I realize it has contrary, meaning it doesn't do anything. I just boost its already higher defenses. It doesn't barely do anything with rock teams, but it starts getting my speed really low. So I start switching. So I switch into Snapchat, but I realize that all my bulldozers are giving it speed boosts due to, again, its contrary ability. I have a couple acrobatics on Instagram, I take it out. Out next is his Stone's Runner, which wastes a turn setting up Stealth Rocks, but I end up using an energy to take it out. He Gigantamaxes his Colossal, and I survive a Max Flare, but I don't know, and I use a Volt Switch so I can switch out into Snapchat, which tanks a Mac Volcalift and dies in the process. I end up going for another Protect as another G-Max Volcalift comes out, but it breaks through Protect and actually kills. I send out Google that uses a dig that does big damage, another discharge from TikTok takes it out. Actually, the Dene I name Tumblr and added Grinder back onto the team. Now it's time for Hop. His double wasn't doing that much, his screeches were kind of annoying, but after a couple heavy slams I take it out. Now it's time for a Cinderace. I try to send out Yahoo, the Luxray, for his first actual fight, but he ends up going down immediately to Pyro. I tank a Pyro Ball with and then Black Social Recovery takes away all the hail damage, but I end up getting an Acid Spray off before I go down super low, and I waste another one of its Pyro Ball turns as I switch out into a project who has to die to a Pyro Ball. I switch out into Google that gets up surviving a double kick and just takes it out with a Thunderbolt. Now it's time for a Snorlax, and I use an Energy Ball, but it does a lot of damage, but then I use a Thunderbolt, so I have to switch out into my lovely little baby Tumblr, but Tumblr ends up taking it out with a bunch of grass knots into his heavy weight. Out next is his Pincurchin, which I end up taking out, where I end up using it's powerful, but it ends up doing a lot. But it's also a Pincurchin that has a super low attack stat. So I basically just keep using Ancient Power until it takes it down because it wastes all his turns with a curse. Out next is Corviknight, but apparently still doesn't resist electric, so it's actually weak to electric. I just keep going for Scary Faces for some reason, but actually takes out Tumblr. I go on revive my Dracozolt that I named Tinder, Grinder's straight brother, and a Pincurchin I named YouTube. Now it's time to take on Marnie. I use a Bug Buzz to take out her Light Pod immediately. Out comes a Toxicroak next that I send out TikTok for. It uses a Swagger on me, but I use it using an Overdrive. Then another Discharge can take it out. Out comes a Scrafty next, and I send out Tinder. They use a Scary Face lowering my speed, but I end up using another Scary Face as I use high horsepower that does barely anything. Use another Scary Face as I use Dragon Pulse, but I end up getting scared that's going to take me out. So I switch out into my Fighting Weak, what I forgot it was, and I actually barely does anything. I switch out into Google that can tank a Break, gets confused though, and then has to switch because it did too much damage. I switch out into Tumblr, which ends up getting swaggered, but I'm able to use my Iron Ball's ability. But I end up having this infuriating Morpeko battle, so I just enter my own Morpeko and prove to her my mind is superior, taking it out with a bite. Out next, now it's time for Piers. Out comes the Scrafty, and Google has to switch because I'm scared that can do big damage. I just protect on the first turn. I switch her with Black Sludge as I use an Acid Spray lowering special attack before taking it out with a Discharge. Out next is Malamar, which is actually weak to bugs, so I'm able to switch Google back in, and it hits me with Foul Play doing a bit of budge damage, but a bug doesn't take it out. Next is Obstagoon, so I end up starting using Fell Stingers, which is also effective, but it does a bit of damage with a throat chop, which because I forget that still no longer resists dark. It ends up doing massive damage to my Drake. After so, I have to switch into my Morpeko, do ritual switches with Thunder Fangs, and eventually it was taken out after the Stun tank. And it's doing a ton. I use Protect as it uses Night Slash, so I'm able to switch into Vinted, but Vinted ends up dying, so I have to switch into. And it was a whole mess of a battle, and even right now I'm getting exhausted trying to recount it, but just know I ended up winning with a bunch of switching and strats, getting me the Dark Badge. I go to the Count Tundra after beating Peony, yeah I know right, crazy. I end up catching an Elekid that I end up having to die, I end up evolving to Electabuzz so I can breed it, then I get its egg, I name ChatGPT, I evolve it into Electabuzz, and I evolve it into Electivire, so it's actually usable for the challenge because of the level cap. I won't use it for a while because I just don't want to train it up. I catch a Rotom named Timu as I get the Rotom catalog, and now it's time for Raihan and his dragon types, or well, more like his sandstorm team. So anyways, out first is Google and Grinder. Grinder is getting ideas about all the men Pokemon. Anyways, I use an energy ball on his Gigalith as I use an ice beam that first of all demolishes his Flygon due to his 4 times weakness to ice. But also I thought with my Miracle Seed and my energy ball would have taken out Gigalith, but it actually doesn't. That sets me up for a really good first turn. It hits, but ends up hitting Dracozo with a massive heavy slam, which I just completely forgot it had. The next turn I take out his Gigalith with an energy ball, but it ends up taking out, that's not before an Earth Power can take out Grinder, meaning I lost him. Anyways, I sent out TikTok, but I forget that he's 4 times weak to ground, but I end up trying to assume that he can probably tank one of the Dynamax turns before having to be switched out. So I use a dig on his Gigantamax Rhydon as I use a Protect to save from any Earth Powers that Sandaconda would use. Raihan predictably Gigantamaxes the Rhydon, meaning for now 3 turns I have to outlast this massive metal behemoth, along with Sandaconda giving support. So I end up switching my entire team into Twitter/X and Tinder. Max Knuckle does a number, but I end up actually being able to live it, hitting with my berry on only 3 HP as I land a Foul Play, taking out his Sandaconda. A soft sand boosted high horsepower does a bunch of damage, but I'm hoping it's gonna go for Max Wormwind, taking out my Tinder as I take it down to the yellow HP. So now the Sandstorm finally ends as Twitter turns into its evil counterpart X. So I'm assuming it will probably kill me. I go for a high horsepower and a Fire Fang and a Breaking Swipe, takes out Twitter/X as I have to switch into Vinted and the outspeed and a Zing Zap takes it out. And actually it flinches it, meaning it's no longer able to kill Tinder, and I use high horsepower, taking it out, meaning I move to the Pokemon League. Nothing of note happens, so I'm able to really just quickly jump into the league. And my first fight being against Marnie. How comes her live bird and I send out YouTube? Yeah, YouTube's on now on the team. As she talks for a bit, I set up spikes as her life pod goes for Star, which doesn't do that much but lowers my special attack. I'm able to rough about 2 toxic spikes before I start getting scared about how much Snarl is doing. My hero for my Citrus Berry actually ends up allowing me to get off an electric terrain. Now it does still do a bunch of damage, but ends up going for Torment the next turn, like an idiot. So these are all the special attack drops. I don't really think that there's any way I can pick it up. She starts saying nasty plots as I set up a 3rd layer of spikes. No, realizing that I'm in a really bad spot right now, I switch into Google, who is super effective against Stark. But her life pod ends up going for Snarl. Luckily I resisted. It still does a ton of damage knowing my special attack. It uses a Torment on me annoyingly as I use a Thunderbolt and Electric Terrain, but due to the fact that it used a Snarl on me and with my first attack, I didn't kill it. So I just have to send it out into a Fell Stinger acted by Vinted. Electric Terrain disappears as it uses Torment on me, wasting its turn as I take it over Fell Stinger. Stupid decisions cause this fight to be drawn out,
but that first thing barely doesn't KO, as it's a Snow on me, as I don't resist Dark because of how it changed in Gen 6. I think that does take it out though. Our next is a Scrafty. Now due to the fact that I'm weak to fighting, I have to switch. I decide to switch into somebody different. But I actually try to think about who to switch out into, due to the fact that anyone could go down. So I end up switching out into ChatGPT, who can tank a bunch of physical hits pretty well, especially a brick break. Though it does do more damage than I expected. A low kick does a lot, but it doesn't take it out. As a crunch takes me down to the yellow. But a thunder punch ends up actually taking it out. But I do have to switch to the next turn due to how much damage I took, as she sends out her Toxicroak. Knowing that I don't really have anything good into it except from a bunch of resistances against its moves, I switch out into Google, who can resist its fighting moves. But luckily it goes for Swagger, which is annoying, but the free boost is actually quite good. Though I don't really have any proper physical attacks aside from Dig. It poisons me with Toxic as I hope I don't hit myself in confusion. I don't, as I go to underground. It uses Venoshock, a Jig strategy, a snap up in confusion, taking it out due to its attack boost and a critical hit. Out next is Morpeko. Now, this is actually pretty scary, as we remember from all the way back in the beginning of the game. It did a lot. I tried to go for a bug bite, it uses a bite on me. With my bug buzz, I hit myself in confusion, and the poison almost takes me out, meaning I have to switch into Tinder. I switch to its hangry mode as I go for a high horsepower, but it goes for a torment. I really know that she keeps doing that. I miss my highest horsepower, meaning I can no longer use it, and it's super annoying. It goes for a bite, doing minuscule damage as I go for a Dragon Tail, switching it out for her final Pokemon, her Grimmsnarl, that now her Gigantamax Pokemon. Now, due to the fact that TikTok is super effective against it due to its fairy type, I obviously switch out into Vinted, because I know that there's no way I will be able to switch out TikTok, because a G-Max Snooze would not only put him to sleep, but also take him out. So as Grimmsnarl Gigantamaxes, Vinted is here basically just as death fodder. A Max Starfall does a ton, taking him out. I switch out into YouTube so I can waste another Dynamax turn. As I set up electric terrain, but G-Max Snooze does a ton, so I have to switch out into TikTok. And now I'm finally able to use a Protect against this final G-Max turn, surviving the G-Max Snooze that I knew was going to come out, doing barely any damage but giving me the drowsy effect. Now as I heal up with my Black Sludge, it finally shrinks back down, and an unlucky Poison Jab is able to take it out with magical difficulty. And her last Pokemon, Morpeko, is due to the fact that it took so much damage before, gets taken out by spikes that YouTube set up, meaning I leave this battle with only one death. Now it's time for Teemo to join the team. As for the next fight, I swing into his Rotom Wash form, and it's time to fight against Hop. He does his double as I send out YouTube. Now, I am kind of scared about this, but I do set up spikes and it sells his body slams, which don't actually do that much. But I'm really scared of paralysis, although I can't get it due to my electric type, which I forgot in the moment. I switch out into ChatGPT with knowing that things were about to get messy, as he uses body slams to do a lot, but I end up landing my Focus Blast, taking it out to the yellow, as he uses a Cotton Dart, stupidly enough, wasting a turn as he uses a full restore annoyingly, meaning my Thunderbolt takes it down to yellow actually, meaning another Thunderbolt can take it out. And next is Snorlax, and I do try to gamble with a Focus Blast and I actually hit it, doing big damage, but a high horsepower almost takes out ChatGPT. So I switch out into Google, whose Levitate ability, he can't be hit by ground type moves. I use an Energy Boost, taking out Snorlax on the next turn, getting an unnecessary critical hit. Now it's time for his Corviknight, who again is weak to electric, funny enough, that gets taken out by one of the Thunderbolt. Out next is Pincurchin of his own, and I'm able to use Dig, which does big damage because Pincurchin is a really bad Pokemon. I know I'm using one. Anyway, as he uses a useless curse, I switch up into TikTok due to the fact that he's gonna Dynamax his Cinderace, and I know Cinderace's Pokemon I should not take it lightly. I use a Boom Burst, one shot in his Pincurchin, as it's now time for me to take down his ace Pokemon, Cinderace. It gets hurt by spikes as I use a Protect for its first Dynamax turn. and it goes for a max flare, which actually doesn't do that much. Well, it does set the sun, but I do have to be more careful because I can't rely on protect over and over again. I switch out into Tinder so he can tank max airstream, anticipating another max flare, but a boosted speed. It uses a max ooze that I'm able to comfortably take as hit back with a high horsepower and shrinks back down. And then I use another high horsepower, but a pyro ball ends up being way too much. But another high horsepower just takes it out, meaning I beat this in the race with the easiest time I've done it in this entire run at the Champions Cup. I switched Timu into his Rotom Heat form. The next fight is against Oleana. Of course, our Frost Lass, which is weak to fire, so I end up leading out with a Hex. He uses a Hex on me, so I Hex back at it, and we do this little Hex dance back and forth. But she's outspeeds me, but my Hex is stronger. Anyways, out next is her Milotic, which I could take out with a Fletcher type move, but I know that it has water type moves, which I don't really want to deal with. It uses a useless Aqua Ring as I go for an overdrive, taking it out, but it uses a safeguard and barely doesn't KO. Another overdrive takes it out though. It doesn't die due to a miracle scale ability, but out next is her Salazzle, which I switch out into Tinder for. It uses a useless Incinerate as I go for a high horsepower 4 times effective, and uses a poison gas on me, but I'm able to take it out with the whole high horsepower. Out next is her Zarina. I use a Breaking Swipe against her Chop Kick, as it lowers her attack so I can comfortably switch out into Timu, who can get hit by a Stomp, but a Hex, an accidental Hex, doesn't kill it, as I try to go for an Overheat, which does end up taking her out. And finally, it's time for her G-Max Pokemon, her Garboda. Now, it is a pretty dangerous Pokemon due to the fact that I don't really have anything good into it, but I end up for some reason I send out YouTube because I forgot to set up spikes, but she's now pretty useless now. I am able to tank a max rock fall as the next turn I switch into TikTok, who's an overdrive. Then I switch out into Google, who able to hit it with a dig and sets up a useless toxic spikes as I'm not switching out anyway. Now I get hit by Ruffets in Sandstorm. Here's another toxic spikes and I hit it with a dig. Now with its weak armor ability lowering its defense, a Gumshot hits for big damage as I take it out of the next turn with a Thunderbolt. Being Oleana, as I watch the PNG of this game story, really wasteful, I switch into a Morotom expecting Nessa, but I end up fighting Bede. I forgot he came right as the finals happened. I use a Thunderbolt against his Maul while taking it out as I then send out Timu for his God of War, which would have been unaffected by all its psychic techniques if I was a Ghost type. I use a Shadow Ball taking it down to half, which is another psychic taking me down to the red, but another Shadow Ball takes it out. Out next is his Galarian Rapidash. I can outspeed it and hit it with a Shadow Ball, and I go for the risk, barely surviving a Psycho Cut. I hit it and lower its special defense, but knowing I don't outspeed anymore, I very much switch into YouTube, who he used a full restore for. I get hit with a Psycho Cut doing big damage. I set up spikes. I set up more spikes as I use another Psycho Cut coming down to the red, so I switch out into ChatGPT, who gets hit by a quick attack. I use Darkest Lariat, taking it down to half, as I forget its Fairy type, meaning it's not actually weak to dark. A Thunder Punch takes it out though. Out next is his Hatterene, his Gigantamax Pokemon. It's hurt by spikes as I try using a Thunderbolt on it, which is not the most beneficial thing I can do, and I really am risking ChatGPT's life here due to the fact that Hatterene is super powerful. I do paralyze it though and do quite a good amount of damage as I survive a max flare, then hit it with another max, then hit it with another Thunderbolt for it. So I'm doing way too much damage, meaning I have to switch out into TikTok. TikTok actually ends up hitting it, wasting its turn, using Protect. Another Poison Jab takes it out, meaning I beat Bede with at the same ease I've done it before. Not a Google Sleep though, but again, pretty easy. Now it's time for Nessa. It's her life support is using a false first impression, but Electric Terrain gets set up. I switch out into Google. Use Liquidation on me, but a Thunderbolt just takes out. Out next is her Seeking, that gets hit by a Thunderbolt before setting up an Aqua Ring, and that takes it out. Out next is her Barraskewda, who gets hit this one with Liquidation, but another Thunderbolt takes it out. Out next is her Pelipper, who sets up the Rain. I switch out into Moro Tom as I use a tailwind annoyingly. He uses an air slash on me and flinches me. Another air slash does quite a bit though, but a discharge takes it out. Now it's time for her dreadnought. I'm not really scared of anything it can do because it has literally no moves that are super effective against me. But as it ends up going for max rockfall, I end up giving a leaf storm, taking it out. Really easy battle. Now it's time for B as I switch Timu into its regular form. Now Halusa comes out first using a high jump kick against usually doing big damage, but my spikes get set up. Use another high jump kick crashing into the ground due to the fact I'm not affected by it. Use a bounce as I protect. And I do this for a little while going for protect against her bounce. Realize that I'm never going to actually beat it. So I try to switch out into ChatGPT, who ends up getting hit by a high jump kick that does a lot of damage. A Thunderbolt takes it out. Now it's time for her failings. I'm able to switch back into Timu as it goes for a no retreat. But I was expecting that to do. But actually goes for Rock Tomb, then a no retreat. I try to use a Willow Whip as I use a bulk up, and I finally do get it off, lowering its attack. Then I switch into Google, scared of what it can do. It uses another bulk up, and I forget it has Rock Tomb, but I use it trying to use another no retreat like an idiot. But she ends up healing the next turn as I just keep going for energy balls, taking it out on the next turn. Now it's time for her grapple locked. I use a Thunderbolt, hitting for big damage, and another Thunderbolt takes it out. Now it's time for her Surf Edged, which gets hurt by spikes as I send out Timu again. You try to use Slam, but since I'm not affected by normal type moves, I use a Will-O-Wisp. I use a Brutal Swing, doesn't do that much, and a Shadow Ball takes it down to half. Another Brutal Swing, a Burn gets it out, and another Shadow Ball takes it out. Now it's time for her Machamp, and this Pokemon has Max Darkness, as I know. So I have to send out into Google, really banking on seeing how defensive my little boy can be. This with my Max Flare, which I actually survived somehow. As I switch out into Tinder, who hasn't taken any damage but hasn't even seen the field. I use it so I can send out in TikTok, who tanks a Max Strike, but she shrinks down as I use the Fire Punch on me, and Overdrive does big damage. I use another Protect the next turn, protecting the Fire Punch, as I'm able to switch out back into Tinder for safety, as I'm finally able to hit or breaking so I can taking it out, winning me against speed. Now I switch into Rotom into its freeze form as I take on Rhyhorn. He sets up the sun the first turn like an idiot. My high horsepower does big damage to his Torkoal, but I don't quite take it out. I keep going for high horsepower, so I keep going for body slap. It switches as I finally take it out. Now it's time for his Flygon, which I send out Timu for, which has Levitate ability, meaning it resists Earth power. It goes for Phantom as I missed 2 of my Blizzards, but the next Blizzard takes it out. Now it's time for his Turtonator, which uses a Shell Trap for a Shadow Ball, which barely does anything. I send out Tinder, I use another Shell Trap as I end up waiting for it. He uses a Dragon Pulse on me, doing big damage, so I have to send back out my Timu, but it was just Shell Traps. As I use Shadow Balls, I keep trying to go for Shell Trap, but since Shell Trap only works for contact moves, and Shadow Ball's not contact move, it will. A Blizzard does big damage to his Guja that sets up the rain, and I send out YouTube, which sets up the spikes as his move of Surf. I switch out into ChatGPT, which gets hit by a Surf, but another Dracus, but Dark Slaric can take it out. Now it's time for his Duraludon, the Pokemon I'm most scared of. He ends up Gigantamaxing it as I stare it down. I use a Focus Ball digging it down to the red as I survive a Max Knuckle, and another Dark Slaric can just take it out. I beat Rhyhorn with pretty much ease. I switch out into Heat Rotom for watching the game's plot as I'm able to finally battle Road. An Overheat can one-shot his Escavalier as that comes next is his Ferrothorn. So another Overheat takes it out due to 4-time weakness, but I do get a bunch of attack lows, meaning I can't take out the next Pokemon that comes out, being his Berserker. I switch out into Tinder so I can start using high horsepowers. This is a squeeze long in my defense. But high horsepower does big damage to take it down to half. It throat trap does a bunch of damage to me, but I don't have high horsepower to take it out. Out comes his Cling Clang as I send out my YouTube. Use Assurance on me and another Assurance, but I set up Spikes. Use another Assurance that I tanked while using setting up Spikes. I get greedy trying to use another one, but it only takes me out, so I have to switch out into Tinder, so high horsepower to take it out. Now it's time for his Copperaja. Now, this battle is very eventful, but I do end up using high horsepower doing big damage before I finish off with an Overheat with Timu. Now it's time for Eternatus. After Leon wastes time using a Pokeball against Legendary, Google and TikTok can just take it out. Now it's time for Dynamax Tintus, which the Legendary heroes can take out with the Sword and Shield, and we finally take out Eternatus. Now it's time for Leon. I switch Teemu into his fan form, and this is the team I'll be taking to fight Leon. These are the Pokemon that will bring me to victory. Let's see if I can do it. And now it's finally time to face off against Leon. I come to this ageless against YouTube. I end up. Now this is scary, but first I use for a King Shield. And see, King Shield doesn't work because obviously I'm not attacking. I go for spikes. You just Shadow Ball taking me out of and I bury him for basically nothing. Then another spikes can come out, but then another Shadow Ball takes out YouTube. This is beneficial actually. Then, because it allows me to set up ChatGPT, use a Dark Slayer, hoping it doesn't go for a King Shield, but it does. And lose my attack, meaning I cannot KO for the next turn. So I'm forced to switch out into Tinder. Tinder was going to be a sacrificial lamb, but it actually is able to take it out due to the fact that Blade Form's defenses are so low, High Horsepower can just one-shot it. Now you see, his Haxorus has Mold Breaker, meaning it's no longer, it doesn't affect any of the Pokemon's abilities, meaning I can't send out Google because of its levitate ability being resistant to earthquakes. So I have to send out into Teemu. I use an outrage on me doing big damage as I heal up with my berry, and then use a Will-O-Wisp to lower its attack, while also making it hurt over and over. Another outrage doesn't KO me that time as it gets confused. As a Shadow Ball, as it burns it, I hope it doesn't, it gets hit off in confusion, and a Shadow Ball takes it out. Now it's time for his Rhyperior, which takes out Teemu with a, which I get off Shadow Ball though, doing big damage, but now Stone Edge takes it out. Now it's time for me to send out Google, and Google must complete one of the hardest missions for him. I go for an Energy Ball, taking out Rhyperior. Now it's time for his Dragapult. Now I can't actually take it out with Google. I switch out into, so I switch out ChatGPT, whose now whole goal is to just see how many Dark Slayers it can take before he can kill it. So a Shadow Ball and a Flamethrower do big damage, but it keeps healing with his stupid full restores. So I have to keep using Dark Slayer over and over again. A Shadow Ball hits me though, I don't die, and if Dark Slayer can take out Dragapult. Now it's finally time for his Rillaboom. Now you see this thing has high horsepower, but luckily my Levitate ability on Google can save me. So now I have to use an agility, not as it goes for an endeavor. This is really important, trust me. I go for a Bug Buzz, taking it down, and now it's time for his Charizard. The 3 Pokemon I have now, I've tested this out multiple times. Again, the run has ended so many times. And I learned I must be faster than Charizard, and I must Dynamax. So as I face down his Gigantamax Charizard, I'm able to land off Max Lightning as I go for a Max Guard the first turn, wasting one of the Dynamax turns. I use a Max Lightning on the next turn, doing big damage and taking up electric terrain, but as I go down to a Max Wildfire, meaning the GOAT and our starter Google gets taken out. Now it's finally time for ChatGPT to come out, but it just dies to a Max Rockfall. Now it's time for an Overdrive can swing us to victory, sending out TikTok, meaning that's how I beat a Pokemon Sword and Shield Nuzlocke with only electric types. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe, and if you want to see me do this again, I might. So be nice to your mom, be nice to your dad, support whoever you want to be, and next time, and always remember, stay in the green Butterfree flock. Thank you for watching, and again, stay in the green Butterfree flock. Bye.